I'm Phil, Youth Services Librarian at Octavia Philin Children and Youth Library. Welcome to Eureka, a STEM program for elementary and middle school age students. Today we're going to be aerospace engineers. Stop for a minute and make a guess about what you think an aerospace engineer does. If you guess that it has to do something to do with air, you're 100% right. It's actually at the beginning of the word. Aerospace engineers design vehicles that move through the air. Well, we're going to learn, first of all, about Sydney Hamilton, who's a woman who's doing cutting-edge work at Boeing as an aerospace engineer. Let's learn a little bit more about her.
My job is really rewarding because you're able to see from concept to flight. I get to design something on my computer, analyze it, we print the part, and then I get to do the testing. So I'm in the lab seeing how close my analysis was. What are the design changes we need to make? And it's real-time engineering where I'm working with the customers and working with the suppliers. And I think that's what keeps things exciting, being able to go to the lab versus being at your desk. You have this idea of what it means to be an engineer in college and what that job would look like, and I feel like I found it. It's very exciting to know that my parts are not only flying on airplanes, but also flying in space. It kind of feels like you have your own signature somewhere in the world.
Now let's do a little bit of aerospace engineering ourselves. If you have the kit from the library, inside of the kit you'll notice there are instructions to make 2 different paper airplanes. But if you don't have the kit, that's totally okay. Just grab a few sheets of paper, get it just right, and try flying each of the airplanes a couple of times. After you've done that, pause and consider how an airplane takes off. You can even try this when you're trying to fly your paper airplanes. What do you have to do to make your airplane fly? What happens if you just throw your airplane just with your wrist? Or what happens when you use your whole arm to throw the airplane? A lot of that is what aerospace engineers think about. Think about how much it takes for a giant aircraft like a Boeing 737 passenger jet to take off. What does it need to have? Well, it definitely needs to have a lot of space to get up enough speed to get into the air. And the bigger the aircraft is, the longer the space that it needs. In fact, one of the biggest aircrafts in the world, which is called an Antonov, needs just about 2 miles of runway in order to take off. Whereas a smaller aircraft, like a Cessna, takes only about 800 feet of runway. So the heavier an object is, or the heavier an aircraft is, the longer it needs and the more speed it needs to build up before it can take off. And you might see that with your airplane as well. So, what happens if you have a space that's limited? Maybe because maybe it's on an island and you don't have enough space for a long runway. So take a look at this picture of Maho Beach, which is a beach in the Caribbean. It might look like it was photoshopped with an airplane flying right over the heads of the people, but that airplane really actually is flying that close to those people. Why do you think that airplane has to land so close to that beach? Well, now take a look at this second photo that's an aerial photo of the island, and you can see why. It's a small island and the runway had to take up just about the entire length of the island for the airplanes to be able to land and take off in time. Well, consider another thing. What if you're on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean and you don't have a lot of land to build a runway and you have a very short space? How do airplanes take off then? Well, take a look at this quick video clip of how they actually use a launcher to launch airplanes off and get them up to speed in a very short space. So in the case of an aircraft carrier, aerospace engineers actually had to figure out how to get an airplane going fast enough to launch into the air without having enough of the usual amount of space to take off. Well, that's the rest of your engineering challenge today. If you have the kit from the library, you will find paper clips and a rubber band and a piece of cardboard in your kit. But if you don't have the kit from the library, you can just use those materials if you have them at home, or use other materials that you can. But your challenge is to try and build a launcher for your paper airplanes. I would suggest maybe using your paperclip as sort of a hook at the front of your airplane, and then seeing if you can devise some sort of a launcher with your rubber band, and then test it out and see if you can get it to launch your airplane and maybe even get your airplanes to fly farther than they can when you just throw them with your arm. Experiment around and see what you can learn as you practice being an aerospace engineer. Thank you so much for joining us for Eureka today. I hope you enjoyed being an aerospace engineer and, in a small way, trying to solve some of the problems that real-life aerospace engineers like Sydney Hamilton have to do in their jobs. Please join us for Eureka every Monday at 4 o'clock at the Children and Youth Library. Hope to see you there.